Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show on LifeSet TV. We are coming to you live, and we've got a great guest today. The title of the show is America First Republicans Winning in 2022 and Beyond. Now that we know for sure that President Trump is not creating a new party, we know what we need to do. And the first thing we need to do is get everybody that left the party to sign back up to become a member of the GOP and take the party apparatus with America First Republicans. Every day I get this question, folks. What can we do to ensure a party that enacts and protects America First policies? After all, that's what President Trump and his administration were really about, wasn't it? Prioritizing us, the American people, over the interests of the rest of the world. The first thing we need to do is encourage those Trump supporters who left the party to come back for various reasons. Get back right away. I myself did that and am back. That's easy. You can do that right now today. Next, I need you to listen to the show today. We have a very special guest that has developed and is executing a plan to take the party from the squish establishment Republicans who want to do what? They want to control the party so they can keep their established Republican squishiness going on. But let's be honest. This plan is the first of its kind that I've seen on such a scale, and I want to help our guest get the word out. This is the action we can all take, and today I've returned to the Republican Party, and I am going to volunteer for this plan in my home state. So let's welcome our guest today, who you may have seen on Steve Bannon's Warroom Pandemic Show as late as today, as a matter of fact, the man who runs precinctstrategy.com and author of How to Get into the Real Ball Game of Politics Where You Live to help President Donald J. Trump make America great again. Dan Schultz, welcome to the Rob Maness Show, sir. How are you?
I'm real good, Rob. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. You coming on. I know that you are a busy man. Bannon keeps you busy quite a bit, as a matter of fact.
Well, what happens with Bannon is when he has me on, he tells me you're going to be on for an hour, then it's a half hour, then you're going to be on for a half minutes. So, like, I think I got about 4 minutes again today, but really, this strategy can be explained in 4 minutes. It's real simple. It's seventh grade basic American civics. That's, I didn't develop anything. This isn't rocket science. This is just American civics, getting involved in one of the two political parties. I learned this in seventh grade, and that's what we have to do. And our party are faking. The Russians have a saying, I'm told. There's only one party, the party in power. We got to get back into power in the presidency, okay? So the tool for doing that, our organizational tool, as you know, is the apparatus of the Republican Party. And we're in a political war.
Mm-hmm.
We're in a political war that gets fought by the two major political parties. We conservatives haven't been in charge of our political party. We've stood on the sidelines, participated. I say that conservatives have, suffer from PPPD syndrome, political party participation deficit syndrome. We got to start participating. It's not hard. It doesn't take more than 3 hours a month. You don't have to go to all the meetings, although in some states they have meeting requirement rules, but they're pretty flexible about that. But literally, if you can take 3 hours away from the internet and media and put your fanny in a folding chair at a monthly meeting and learn how to do politics, now we can start taking our country back. And what I want to see is, I want to see this happen as quickly as possible, because the best way to send a message to a state legislator or any other elected official is to be able to pick up the phone and call them and say, I just became a precinct committeeman, or I'm in the process of becoming a precinct committeeman, or I am a precinct committeeman. I'm recruiting, and I'm conservative. And I'm recruiting every conservative I know to become a precinct committeeman. When you say that on the phone, they know you're in the real ball game of politics, because you're going to be able to get out the vote in that very important primary that they want to win to go on to the general. You got to win 2 elections. You got to win the primary and then the general. Primary is most important. And so we've been sitting on the sidelines, we conservatives, not me, but a lot of conservatives have been sitting on the sidelines, and we've got to invade our party and take it over. Half of the slots are there for the taking. They're just vacant. It's worse in Arizona, where I am. We started out in 2020 with, and in 2018, the same. Only about a third of our precinct committeeman slots got filled via we do it via the primary election. Thereafter, you can get appointed to a vacancy if your county chairman will appoint you. We got to fill up all these slots fast, and that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to do. I was told earlier today here in Maricopa County, we've got about 2,700 of them were filled after the 2020 primary. We have 700 people who have signed up since. So we're going to go from like 2,700 to 3,400 in like 3 months. That's terrific. That's never happened before. And so thankfully, Bannon has had me on his program and given me a few minutes to explain this simple strategy. It's also explained in my book, and it's also explained at my website, precinctstrategy.com. And I've tried to compile there for every state a little something that I've been able to find on the net about the political parties there. Some states have some really good information online. Other states don't have hardly any information. But
and that's usually an indicator, isn't it, Dan? That the less information a state party has online or local, the more they don't want you to really bother them. I mean, that's kind of the way I've seen it. I served on the parish executive committee for 2 terms, 2 4-year terms in Southeast Louisiana, and I was puzzled because, like you, I came to this late in the game. I spent over 30 years in the military, but I was puzzled that they don't really want folks to know what they're doing on those executive committees, is what I saw.
And right. And they ought to. Conservatives want to advertise this stuff, but the people who aren't conservative, not so much. And so it's incumbent upon ourselves to find the information and then get to it, get into the game, get into the real ball game of politics. You got to join a party. Okay, if you're an independent, you can't be a precinct committeeman. If you're, I say, look, the real ball players in politics are the precinct committeeman. Everybody else is a spectator. But if you're an independent, you're not even in the stadium. You're out in the parking lot, because you're not in a party. So I say to the independents, pivot, go back into the Republican Party, hold your nose if you have to. I don't care. But become a precinct committeeman, become a ball player, because precinct committeemen elect everybody in the party all the way up to the RNC. So precinct committeemen elect county precinct committee directly. And if there's a local, like we have legislative district committees here in Arizona, we elect those officers directly. But then we also elect the electors of the state committee. So I'm a state committeeman. I got to go to the organizational meeting of the state committee, and I got to vote in the election of our state chairman, who serves a 2-year term on the RNC. My kids did that too. Now they're 20 and 22, but they've done it in 2 election cycles already when they were 18 and 20. And so, and then we precinct committeemen also elect the electors of the state convention delegates every 4 years. Those people elect the national committeeman and the national committee woman and the national convention delegates. It's real. But who gets to elect those? Anybody can run for delegate.
Right.
Any Republican can run for delegate, but only the precinct committeemen elect them. So that's, again, why you want to be a precinct committeeman. Precinct committeemen have real political power. And when you've got a full strength party in my precinct, I have 11 slots, all 11 are filled. It only takes us about 3 hours a piece because we cut the precinct up into sectors. Each precinct committeeman is responsible for about 125 voters, but we only have to contact about 45 or 50 of them, the ones who don't normally vote, and urge them to go vote. That process, when it's done right, only takes about 3 hours. And my precinct has always been, the last 10 years, near the top in terms of the percentage of Republicans that went to vote. I think we had over 90% of our Republicans vote in this last general election. We were in the top 41 precincts in my legislative district. And so when you do that in every and it varied. See, some of our precincts only had like 55, 60% of the Republicans. Well, what if we had boosted it in every precinct where we had all of the precinct committeeman slots filled? My legislative district, we had 444 slots, but only 161 got filled back in 2020 in the primary. That's pathetic.
It is.
Okay. We're not doing a good enough job of finding conservatives. Look, it's Arizona. There's plenty of conservatives in Arizona. There's just not plenty of them becoming precinct committeemen. And that's what I'm trying to fix.
Yeah, we see the same thing down here in Louisiana and in the South and the Southeast. In Louisiana's case, like I said, I was on the executive committee, but we didn't have precinct committees. So I'd like to see the grassroots Republicans come in and reestablish, if they ever existed, precinct committee levels and change those rules in Louisiana and any other state if that's required to do that. Is Louisiana unique in that it doesn't have precinct committees, or is that just something that happens all over the country?
It varies. Each state is unique. I haven't read your Louisiana state bylaws or the election code and how that all works, but I do know this. For example, maybe this happened in Louisiana. In Wisconsin, now think of who was once the chairman of the party in Wisconsin. It was this guy named Reince Priebus, right?
Yeah.
And I know, talking to people in Wisconsin, that's where I grew up. It wasn't moribund when I was there. When I was there growing up in 7th grade, when I learned all this stuff, I knew what a ward was. I knew what a ward captain was. That's what they're called. They're called wards and ward captains in Wisconsin. And I knew who they were. They were my dad and one of my dad's friends. And what happened, though, in Wisconsin is the Wisconsin Republican Party at the very top decided we're going to sort of like not encourage this anymore. And they started doing that in the 60s. And then through the 70s, they let the party sort of wither and die down at the ward level. Well, I'm starting to see that reversed now. And I know several people who have become ward captains now in Wisconsin and some of the counties. And they'll go to the meetings and see, and you say, I want to be a precinct committeeman. They'll say, well, we don't have precinct committeemen. Well, that's because they don't call them precinct committeemen. They play word games with you, right? That's why that's why I've tried to find bylaws which has that terminology in it, or whatever else I could find. There's a lot of states have. Texas is really great. One of the best resources pages I found for a state party is the Texas resource page. They've got a precinct, they call them precinct chairs, precinct chair handbook published on their website, county chair handbook on their website, tutorial PowerPoints that show how the party is structured. And there's a lot of other good links I have with respect to Texas. But like you said earlier, one way to gauge a party in a state is go to its web page. And if it's a vanilla page with no information about how to become a precinct committeeman, then you know who's in charge. On the other hand, if you go to a state like Texas, you see who's in charge in Texas. They want you to become precinct committeeman. They've at least published the information. So
yeah, it's interesting.
I had hoped that Donald Trump would have read my book and done what it said, but he didn't. And I've got a video on a narrated PowerPoint that I created in 2020, January of 2020, on my shows
Mhm.
how he could have used his resources to completely fill up all of the precinct committeeman slots in the country of the Republican Party. But he didn't do it. And I don't know why he didn't do it. If I'd have been him, or if I'd have had his ear, I'd have told him to do that. And the people who didn't tell him to do that are going to have to answer for themselves why, who had access to him, who didn't tell him to do it.
Yeah, the party leadership had very good access to him early on in the administration. I mean, Priebus became his chief of staff, and I was puzzled by that too. I'm surprised that I didn't know about your book, Dan, but the instinct in me said, hey, most folks that win governor or president end up being the head of the party, and then they remake the party apparatus
Yeah.
to suit them. That didn't
Right.
happen under the Trump administration, and
No,
and it's
it didn't.
surprising that it didn't.
Yeah, it didn't. I won't say this person's name, but there was somebody who was very close to Donald Trump. And right after Donald Trump got elected, I emailed that person and I told him, listen, traditionally, what happens when a new elected Republican president comes in, he has traditionally been granted the courtesy of naming who he wants the RNC to elect as their chairman. I don't think Donald Trump did that because I don't think anybody around him told him that. And there were plenty
Yeah.
of people around him who told him, who could have told him that, who knew this. The guy I emailed didn't know this, and that's why I told him, but they didn't tell him. And that's a tragedy because he could have see the rules of the Republican Party say that anybody can be named by the RNC, elected by the RNC to be its chairman. It doesn't even have to be a Republican.
Yeah.
And I told this person, tell Trump to have me be elected the RNC chairman. I'll grow the party. I'll fill up every vacant precinct committeeman slot with a Trump supporter. But that, of course, that didn't happen. And there was no influx of Trump supporters into our party. The numbers don't lie. There's been no increase.
Yeah.
There has in some places where I've been successful in recruiting people, but otherwise, overall, none, including here in Arizona. Our chairman, our current chairman's Kelly Ward.
Yeah.
She came in with about two-thirds of the slots vacant, and she just got reelected. Apparently in January. I was at the meeting. It's not clear that she really was elected in my mind, but and there may be a special meeting call to do an audit of that election. She's resisting that. But one of the selling points for the other candidates were, hey, look, Kelly promised to fill up all the vacant precinct committeeman slots in Arizona in 2 years with Trump supporters. She didn't do that. And Trump Victory didn't do it. I tried to do it. I've been trying to do it, every which way I can. But we've got to all work together now. All of us conservatives have to work together to ourselves become PCs and then become recruiting machines and recruit others by our example that, okay, I became a precinct committeeman. You need to become a precinct committeeman. You need to become a precinct committeeman. And here's why.
And at this precinct level, I mean, that's your neighborhood, really, right, Dan?
Yes,
I mean, the precinct is your neighbors, right?
It's your political neighborhood, right? It's your political neighborhood, and it's your neighborhood, and so I've recruited my neighbors here over the years. I've recruited others, strangers, get to know them, but I find out they're a conservative, and then I recruit them, and that's what we've got to do. We've just got to fill up all these vacant slots, take over our party. Because, I told the Tea Partiers when I started doing this way back in 2009, after Barack Obama got elected, I'd go to these Tea Party meetings and other conservative meetings, and I would say at the end, listen, I can't guarantee you that if we fill up every vacant precinct committeeman slot with a Tea Party or a conservative, a taxed enough already person, that we're going to prevent the slide of this republic into socialism via Obamacare, etc. I can't guarantee that, but I can guarantee you this. If we don't take over the Republican Party as our first step, we're going to lose our republic.
Yeah.
I guarantee it. And we're seeing it
I'm with
unfold before our very eyes. We good, decent, conservative Americans have to get control of this Republican Party. Look at some of those Republicans that we elect.
It's incredible.
They voted to impeach Trump, for crying out loud. They never fought for him or any of his policies. They were roadblocks to him. Paul Ryan, I mean, the first 2 years of the Trump presidency, look at what the Republicans did. They delivered nothing for Donald Trump. He had to do almost all of it by executive order. They bring these stupid budgets. They weren't budgets. Continuing resolution after continuing resolution. They never passed a budget. And so we've got to elect better Republicans. And the way to elect better Republicans is to invade our party, fill up all the vacant precinct committeeman slots, and come 2022, have every incumbent Republican have a conservative challenger, and all of these conservative precinct committeemen helping to get out the vote for them. Here in Arizona, the average turnout in a primary is somewhere between 25 and 30% if we're lucky. That's a golden opportunity. You boost turnout of those lower information, lower propensity voters, Republicans, for a good, and give them a real vote. Look, we got a good conservative here running against a weak incumbent rhino. Please come vote. We can take this rhino out and replace him with this good conservative. They'll go vote. I know this works because I did it for a candidate here, an Air Force guy, Air Force Academy grad named Frank Schmuck in 2016 in my legislative district. We took out the incumbent rhino. Frank didn't win the general, but we won in a landslide, and we did it the old-fashioned way. We used precinct committeemen and Frank's other supporters. We contacted those lower information, lower propensity voters. We got them to go vote. The incumbent didn't see us coming. All he did was put up signs. That was it. Send out mailers. But we went directly to those lower information, lower propensity voters using the party's software, because precinct committeemen get access to that.
That's right.
And it works. You identify the right voters, you get them to go to the polls. So we gotta challenge every incumbent Republican. We gotta have a challenger for every single one of them, especially in the state legislatures of Arizona, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, who failed their constitutional duty to declare those fraudulent elections where they changed the laws. They didn't have any authority to do that. That on its own was a basis to throw those out, and none of them did it. They had Republican majorities in those states, and they could have fixed it, and they didn't. And I want all of them to have challengers. That's my goal.
And that's where the responsibility lies, and you mentioned Republicans voting to convict President Trump. My opponent from 2014, Senator Bill Cassidy, was a lifelong Democrat. That's why I ran against him. But I wish I had an understanding of what the party apparatus was. I was just 2 years out of the military and really didn't understand it, even though I'd been in the Republican Party all my life. I really didn't understand it. And we wouldn't have had Bill Cassidy there had we been able to figure that out and have an understanding of what it really took, because we had the money, but it is what it is. So just because you lose doesn't mean you give up either, right, Dan? You can try.
Right.
Look, I'm still in the fight. I'm not going anywhere. Heck, people ask me if I'm going to run again all the time, and I say never say never. Although my wife's got a big say in that. But we've got to get people to have a better understanding of how this works in the party. And that's why I wanted to get you on, because we've got to get your message out everywhere. Bannon's great, but he's got a limited audience too. So I wanted to get it to my audience, which is very activist oriented, they don't know the things that you teach.
Yeah, I was thinking about inventing some sort of a sleep product so I could get on the show more often. That's a joke. Yeah. But yes, I want to get this message out anywhere and everywhere I can, and not just me. That woman, Maggie Vandenberg, goes by Fog City Midge. She came
Yeah.
back onto the show and she said, I listened to what Dan Schultz had to say. I moved to Palm Beach County, Florida. I went through the steps that he said. I'm now a member of the Central Committee. That's how easy it was. Okay.
Yeah.
That is how easy it is in some places. I'm getting messages from people all across the country telling me. I got one guy, a West Point grad, 1998, Army football player in a county in I think it was Georgia. It might have been South Carolina. Both of those states are having their process go right now. And he said, I listened to what you said. I did my homework. I recruited a whole bunch of people. We got elected at our precinct caucuses. The next step, I went to our county meeting. I got elected chair. We took out everybody. They didn't even see us coming.
Yeah.
And they're at like 70% strength now, as opposed to having been at like 35% strength. I want to get that guy on with Steve Bannon. I sent the guy's email to Steve. I said, I'm going to send this to Steve. Maybe he'll have you on, because that's the kind of there's other stories like that I've received, and I hope Steve continues to put those kind of success stories on his program. But I know he's got time pressures and everything, and so. But anybody else with a platform like yourself, for example. So thankful that you're having me on to get this message out, because every conservative audience needs to be receiving this conservative message that actually is a strategy and a plan for real action to, as I said, we've got to do one thing first. We got to take back the Republican Party apparatus so that conservatives are in control of it. So we have a better shot at electing better people. I didn't say better Republicans or more Republicans. I said better people. We've got to elect better people, because some of the people who run with an R after their name, they're not very good people. And they're not for draining the swamp. They're for the exact opposite. They've got something in Washington they want for themselves or their cronies, and that's why they went there.
Yeah,
that Marjorie Green is fantastic. I loved what she said that day on Bannon's program, that it's an SHIT hole is what
it is.
I try not to swear, that DC is a SHIT hole. And she wants nothing better than get the heck out of there as fast as she can. But she had to hold her nose and go there and try to fix things. And you know what they've done to her so far. They've tried to intimidate her. She's not going to back down. I love that woman. She's fantastic. And so those are the kind of Americans. We got to get you, right? We get everybody like you elected. And I want to help make that happen, because if we don't do it, we're going to lose our republic.
We are gonna lose our republic. That's why, I mean, you and I, we have served already, but we're getting older. But I'm not going to get out of the fight, and I'm so glad that I saw you on Steve's show and did some research on this, and wish that I knew about the book back in 2016, 2017, and everything, because. And I've got Rob Koenig's comic up on the screen. That's one of our viewers. He talks about career politicians on both sides have used their position for financial gain. They've got to go. We've got to get, it gets to your point, Dan. We've got to get better people elected. And you know what? A lot of squish Republicans that I know, and some are friends of mine, don't like Marjorie Green. But you know what? I'm glad she got elected, because she fights. As Abraham Lincoln said to the naysayers about Grant, when they wanted him to fire him, he said, no, he's indispensable. He fights. I'll fire everybody else, but I'm not going to fire the ones that will fight for us. And I'm not talking about fights for their own power and all that stuff, but Green is actually, she's doing it. She's taking the action that needs to be done, even though they've stripped her of her committee assignment, which is unbelievable and unheard of. But that tells you that the uniparty, that's what I call the swamp in DC, is the uniparty people that have the power up there. People like Senator McConnell, who's done some good things, but also is very powerful and will crush any Republican candidate that gets outside of the lanes if he gets the opportunity to. And they do it, and they're all working against people like Green. They're all working against her, and you're right. We've got to get more people up there, and the way to do that is this at the ground level. Get into the precinct committees and work our way up. And how do people find out more about this, Dan? I know about your website. I think it's got a new name, right? Precinctstrategy.com.
It's just precinctstrategy.com. That redirects to the original URL, which is it's a free WordPress site. I did it on WordPress. I did it all by myself,
Yeah.
I'm not a programmer or anything. I know a little bit. I was actually an information security officer at one time at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. The colonel said, "You guys study computers at West Point, right?" "Yeah." "Well, I took a program." And goes, "Okay, I'm going to make you the information security officer." Plus, I had a clearance for it. But anyways, precinctstrategy.com, precinctstrategy.com, and the site is being revamped by some professionals now to make it easier to navigate and everything. But it's a real simple template of a site, and you go there, you look for what's there for your state, scroll down, it's off on the right. If you do it on a cell phone, you got to scroll all the way down to view full site, and then you'll see what it looks like on your computer. But it's better to go to a laptop or a desktop and find your state, see what's there for your state, learn the terminology, okay? Learn as much as you can online first. Then see if you can contact your county committee. And if you're in an urban area, you might be like I am. I live in a suburb of Phoenix. I have a legislative district committee that's smaller than the county committee. Our legislative district committee has 444 precinct committeeman slots. It's based on the number of registered voters for your party. But my county committee has 7,427 slots, or 67, one of the two. Much bigger committee, and it has an executive committee. I was on the executive committee for a while. I'm not anymore. I'm just a lowly precinct committeeman and state committeeman right now. So find your committee, and then don't keep your cards close to your vest. Don't let on that you're a Trump supporter. Go in and see who's running that committee. Talk to them on the phone. Email them. You've got to be the squeaky wheel. Everybody in our party is a volunteer. It's a part-time thing that they get to when they have the time. So you might have to make, like I did the first time back in 2007. I must have made 15 phone calls before finally I got somebody. Okay, because one volunteer will hand it over to another volunteer, and then it gets lost through the cracks. So you just got to be the squeaky wheel. Then find where your committee meets. Go to that committee meeting and say, "Hi, I'm Dan Schultz. I'm a Republican. I'd like to become a member of this party. Do you have a handbook for how that happens? Do you have a set of bylaws to read?" I just got an email before I came on from a guy in Wisconsin. He said he went to his meeting. He says they were not welcoming. When I asked for the bylaws, this guy got all huffy. I mean, like, how dare you ask for our bylaws? I mean, that's the rules of the road, right? And so
that's right.
Find your committee, find the meeting, go there, try to find out who the other conservatives are. What I did at my first meeting way back in 2007, they asked us to stand up and say who we were. I said, "I'm Dan Schultz, and I'm a Fred head, Fred Thompson," right? The primary season was going on. McCain was in the I said, "I don't like John McCain.
I understand why. I don't like John McCain either."
But then I said, "But I'm a good Republican. I'm a conservative in the primary guy, Republican in the general. If John McCain gets the nomination, I will do everything I can to get him elected," because I knew who this other guy was on the Democratic side, Barack Hussein Obama. And he was bad news, wasn't he? And so, again, like I said at the beginning, there's this old Russian saying, There's only one party, and that's the party in power. And we've let the Democrats come to power in the worst place possible, the presidency. And we got to fix that. And the best way to fix that in the short term is to have a resounding success in the 2022 midterm elections, changing the House, changing the Senate, stopping everything then. And for those who say, yeah, but what about how they're going to steal the elections again with the Dominion software? And, the best way to fix that is to fill up all these vacant PC slots as soon as possible, which sends a signal to those legislators and call them and say, I'm Dan Schultz. I'm a precinct committeeman, or I'm becoming a committeeman, and I'm recruiting every other person I know to become a precinct committeeman. And if you don't fix election stuff for us, you're toast in your next primary. That gets their attention. Trust me, it gets their attention.
It
really
sure does.
Gets their attention because they're
the number one priority of a politician that's in office is always to get reelected, and anything that threatens that, they're going to try to address it. If they're good, they'll address it from the perspective of the citizens that are calling them. But they will try to address that if they think that their reelection is threatened. And you're exactly right, man. We've got a very short window of opportunity too. The other thing that these precinct committee men and women can do, though, is in addition to just putting pressure on the legislators, they can insist those state legislators actually draft legislation and get it passed that does away with things like electronic voting systems if we can't secure them and make them reliable and give the people of the United States, the confidence that election is proper, and go back to a paper system if it's necessary to do that until we get it figured out. But it's at the state legislature, and these committee men and women can make that happen, just them on their own, if we have the seats filled, right?
Right. We have to fill up all the seats. There's no question in my mind if instead of having only 1/3 of our slots filled here in Arizona in the Republican Party, if we had 100% of them filled, there's no question in my mind that our state legislators would have done a better job. They would have done a better job overseeing our Secretary of State and not allowing her to do what she did, make up new laws, which they were supposed to oversee her and say, no, you can't do that. They should have been publicly saying to our Secretary of State, you can't change these laws just because of COVID. We make the laws. You don't have any right to do that. They didn't do that. Wow. And then after the election, when it was over with, everybody and their dog knew it was fraudulent, right? Mm-hmm. They didn't do anything. And the reason, I'm convinced they would have done something if we would have had all of our conservatives in the state filling these slots. They had filled them back in 2020, and then picking up the phone and saying, you guys got to do something now. This was a fraudulent election. I did it. I mean, I sent them an email. I laid it out soup to nuts for them. Short email, real simple. Constitution gives you the power, plenary authority to fix the election fraud.
And only
declare it invalid. Then you select the rightful electors. They didn't do it, and they didn't do it because there weren't enough people who were in the process, and they're thinking, well, if the status quo stays the same, I'll get reelected. That people will forget. We got to show them that we're not going to forget, and the best way to show them is by doing it physically, stepping up to the plate, filling one of these vacant slots, volunteering to fill it. The way it works here in Arizona, it's pretty much first come, first serve. If you're a bona fide Republican, the county chairs, they're not going to turn you away. You're a volunteer, for crying out loud. Why would they turn around a volunteer who wants to help the party? They have the power to say no, though, here in Arizona by statute. And I think in most states, the county chairs have the authority to not appoint anybody unless they want to. But if you've got a line, I've got that one graphic I use with Bannon where there's a line out the door to a local county committee meeting. if there's a line out the door of people wanting to volunteer, you think they're going to turn them away? It's political suicide to do that. So we got to organize, we got to unite politically. Where we best place to do that is in our local party committees at those meetings as full-fledged precinct committeemen. So that's my message to everybody.
So Dan, what specifically are they signing up for when they volunteer to do this? I mean, how much time is committed, and what's that commitment look like?
Well, the magic word you just said there was volunteer, because you're a volunteer. You're like a member of a yacht club, right? Nobody can tell you to go stand on the corner with a clipboard and get signatures. If you want to volunteer to do it, you can. You're a volunteer. You put into it as much or as little as you want, right? Some states do have like meeting requirements. Florida does. They want you to come to the meetings. And if you're not going to make a monthly meeting, they want to know why. They want an excuse, some valid excuse. But that's not the way it is here in Arizona. So you put into it whatever you want. But the key thing is this, two key things. You elect then, you get to vote for who runs our party all the way up to the RNC. Okay, that's key. And then secondly, you get access to the Get Out the Vote software for your precinct to help get out the vote for the best candidates, both in the primary and in the general. And if there is, let's say there's two Republicans running, like in my legislative district, some legislative district committee bylaws say we will not allow, per our bylaws, an endorsement by the committee, but ours are silent. So if there was a real good conservative and I felt I could get a majority of the precinct committeemen in my legislative district to vote to endorse the good conservative, not the other person, we could do that. Then they can go everywhere and say, I'm running for the state legislature from legislative district 18. I've been endorsed by the precinct committeeman of legislative district 18. They want me over this other person. That's powerful. Okay. And we did that one time for a candidate for county attorney. We call district attorneys here in Arizona county attorneys. Bill Montgomery. He didn't have much name recognition. He was running against two rhinos. After we endorsed him at the county committee, I was there that night when it happened. I was one of the people who voted for him. We had to do it by supermajority. Bill went everywhere and said, now, the county committee endorsed me. Well, the next day, one of the two guys dropped out.
Wow.
Because Bill had gotten that endorsement. And he got elected in the primary, and then he won the general. And now he's on the Arizona Supreme Court. And he's a West Pointer, too. He's about 10 years younger than me as well.
Fantastic.
Nice guy, good, decent man. And I believe he won because enough conservatives were on our county committee at the time. We had to have a 60% of 30. And the bare 60% voted. The chairman got to abstain, and he got the endorsement. So that's another thing that precinct committeemen do. They can endorse candidates, the best candidates, and it carries weight with the voters. Because most Americans, as you know, don't like politics. They don't pay politics. Those of us who I don't like politics either. I just know it's my civic duty. It's my civic duty to do this stuff. Okay,
it is
for my kids. The only reason I'm doing this is because I have children. If I didn't have any children, I'd probably be fishing right now. Okay, but I have kids, and I don't want them to live in a socialist hellhole, and that's coming if we don't prevent it. And the best way to prevent it is to get involved in our party as precinct committeemen. Period.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Dan. It is coming. I can guarantee it, just like you can, that if we do nothing, that is going to happen. And I have kids and grandkids, and I don't want them to inherit a socialist hellhole either. I'll say it, shithole, because I've seen enough of those, and from Europe to Asia, and it's just terrible when we end up doing that. So do you have a state group or a state contact for each state on your blog on the website? Is there one there?
No, but like I said, I have information for all 50 states, and that I'm glad you ask that, because one of the things we're trying to do, I have contacts in just about every. There might be some exceptions, but I have go-to people. Like if someone from Maryland says, "Hey, I want to be," how does it work in Maryland? I just send them to those people. Michigan, same thing. California, I have 10 or 12 people. I don't have a person in every county yet in California, but I have people in San Diego County, LA County, Riverside, San Bernardino, a bunch of the others. Okay. So the best thing to do is go to my blog, and you can contact me there by leaving a comment and just say, "Hey, I'm in this state." A lot of people have done it that way. The other way is the email address that I give out now is it's a Proton Mail address, Cold Warrior 1978, Cold Warrior 78 at protonmail.com. Send me an email. Please tell me what state you're in and what county you're in, because that helps if with respect to like California, and then I'll shoot you to somebody who can help if I have somebody for that state. One of the things we're thinking about doing is we're trying to find the right platform. You know, Mike Lindell's coming out with his new platform. I'm on Cloud Hub. I'm on Gab. I'm on MeWe. I'm trying to get completely off of Facebook, completely off of Twitter. I don't even go to Twitter anymore. Completely off of Google products, not Gmail anymore. I'm going to shut down. I'm using Proton Mail because it's secure. MeWe's good. Gab is good. Cloud Hub is good. And what we're trying to do is grow out, maybe on one of these platforms, I don't know which one yet, a network of people who are precinct committeemen and want to help others become precinct committeemen in each state, and even the 5 territories and DC, because DC and the 5 territories also have 3 people on the RNC. There's 168 members. And there's 50. There's 150 from the 50 states, and then 3 from the territories, the 5 territories, and DC. 168. Wow. And we've got to elect better people to those positions. Another reason why is Presidential Debate Commission. Debate Commission. Those aren't debates.
They're not debates.
Guess who entered into that contract? The RNC.
The RNC, yeah.
If I'd have had Donald Trump's ear, I would have told Donald Trump I would have said, tell Romney McDaniel and tell Reince Priebus before her, I ain't doing those debates. I'll debate Hillary Clinton or Joe Biden anytime, anywhere, in a real debate. Why doesn't the RNC break that contract? Well, guess who's on the debate commission? A whole bunch of former RNC members who make a whole bunch of money.
They do, yeah.
Over the course of 4 years, somehow they get paid a whole bunch of money.
Yeah.
You know,
that's exactly why it keeps going. It's about money and power. Money and power.
Exactly.
Money and power.
But the president could have said, I'm not doing it anymore. Our presidential candidate, President Trump, and then before that when he was a candidate, he could have said to them, I'm not doing it. And they couldn't have done anything about it. And he should have done it. But I don't know who was advising him. But
I don't know who was advising him either.
RNC.
Yeah, I mean, he had those of us out here that push his policies. I mean, I ran on the same policies that he won on in 2016. But I ran in 2014 on those policies. That's how I knew they were good. But I don't know who he was listening to, on a day-to-day basis, because people that I know that I thought were in the inner circle have sent messages to him about, hey, you need to get your personnel policy under control. You're hiring too many insiders, and you're hiring RNC people to be your staff and all that, and they're not in favor of your policies. But we never saw him come around on that. Hopefully, we can do that now. And we can do that from the ground up, going through this process and using this strategy to get these seats filled, because I think there's like 400,000 of these seats in the country and only about half of them are filled. Is that right, Dan?
Right. Yeah,
Okay.
we need 200,000 saviors of the republic among the 74 million MAGA America firsters. That's 3/10. That's less than 3/10 of 1% of 74 million.
Yeah.
If you become a precinct committeeman, you're part of the elite. You're
Yeah.
less than 1 in 100. You're like point. You're 8/10 of 1% of all Republicans when everything's filled up. Right now, only about 3/10 of 1% of all Republicans are in our party. If you're a precinct
Wow.
committeeman, right here, I say, where is it? Over here? Or no, over here.
Yeah,
Um,
you got
um,
it up there.
the if you're a precinct committeeman, you're part of the elite. You're a ball player in the real ball game of politics. If you're not a precinct committeeman, you're outside the meetings. You're a spectator. Precinct committeemen elect the people who write the party platform, right? Up on the RNC level.
That's right.
Precinct committeemen elect everybody in the party. If there are no precinct committeemen, there's no party. Just because you registered, like in some states, you can register for a party. Just because you filled out a registration form and checked the R box, that doesn't make you a member of anything. That makes you a voter, period.
Yeah.
And then if you send $20 foolishly to the RNC and get that little blue embossed sustaining member of the RNC card, like I did foolishly many years ago, and I now still, because of that, keep getting every day emails, every month.
I did too.
Mail, all of those RNC committees. You're not a sustaining member of anything. You're not a member of anything. You're a donor.
That's right. That's right. You're a donor.
So even though I'm a precinct committeeman, they'll send me something like, "We haven't heard from you in a while, Dan. You know, what do you mean you haven't heard from me? I've been a precinct committeeman the last 11, 12 years. I've been on the county committee as an officer, an elected officer. I've been a state committeeman. I've been a state convention delegate. Haven't heard from me. What are you talking about? I'm in the party." But see, they don't care. What they care about is getting rubes to send them money with these scare tactics like, oh my God, look at what the Democrats are doing. We're going to fix it. Fill out this survey. And then they don't do anything. Well, it's our fault. We've got to do something. We've got to make our party better so that the people who we send to Washington and into the state legislatures do fight for our rights and do a better job with COVID, like Kristi Noem did in South Dakota, like DeSantis did down in Florida. Not like in my state here with Doug, what's his name? I think his real name is Roscoe, but he goes by Ducey. Guys like that who don't have a brain, don't have a spine, and are fake conservatives. He's heavily into the deep state. He's heavily into healthcare and vaccines, and that's why our state bankrupted all of these small businesses for no reason whatsoever. Because he was dancing to somebody's tune. I don't know whose it is exactly, but we got to elect better people.
We got to elect better people.
For somebody else,
And Dan, I know you've got to run here, but just give the rundown of your handles on the social media that you use, like Gab and that kind of thing.
Well, really, the only thing I do on social media is I'm on. I have a group on MeWe. I have a group on Gab. I have a group on CloudHub, and the easiest way to find them is they all have the word precinct in them. So if you search on groups for precinct, you'll find it's all three of them have these words in them: precinct committeeman strategy. And then the only other place that I like to post information is on my blog, which is precinctstrategy.com. And I'm constantly, as people are sending me information, adding to that list of materials for each state, so that when you get there, you go look at your state, go down, find it, and then there'll be several links, hopefully, for your state where, like, for example, Florida has a really good, it's Pasco County, has a really good tutorial page that says this is how you become a PC in Florida. So I have that link there. So that's what I do. I do occasionally tweet on Twitter about the precinct committeeman strategy. I'm Dan Schultz 2, DANSCHULTZ number 2 on Twitter.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Dan. We appreciate it. Thank you for your service to this country, your continued service
yours
to
too.
this country.
Yours too. You know, it was an honor and a pleasure. You know,
I will find your groups, and I'll send you an email on Proton with a link to the show once we get it published. It publishes out on Thursdays, folks. Just as a reminder, and you can also share it on Facebook and all the social channels that we've been live on.
I will do that.
We appreciate it. We appreciate it, Dan. God bless you. God bless your family. And thank you so much, sir, for joining us today.
Oh, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Bye-bye. I got to run.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Well, folks, that was Dan Schultz of PrecinctStrategy.com. You've seen him on the War Room with Bannon, and we've got to get this word out. So once we get this show published on Thursday, please share it. We're being suppressed on social media pretty dramatically since September of last year. It's gotten worse in 2021 since the current president started occupying the White House. And of course, the Speaker of the House built Fort Pelosi and is having a military occupation of the nation's capital. So please share it. And don't forget, it's up to us, and we have the power to do this job. It's very basic and very simple and not very time consuming. Go out there and volunteer to be a precinct committee man or woman and start from there, and encourage your neighbors that you know are good conservatives that believe in America First policies to go out and do it too. So next up, we're going to play an ad from our sponsor, author Dennis Haw, The Road to Americanism book. If you're worried about your kids, what they're being taught at school, whether it's the truth or not about how America was founded, get this book and have them read it and teach them from it in a little homeschool session, and you'll be assured that they know how America was founded and how we got to where we're at. So here's a word from our sponsor. I'm retired Colonel Rob Maness. Your kids and grandkids are being taught to hate America in public schools using flawed ideas like the 1619 Project. You can provide an antidote to this disease of hate for all America stands for. It's Dennis Haw's The Road to Americanism. You can make sure our young people learn to love America and become the citizens we need to protect her future. Order The Road to Americanism on Amazon.com right